pleased I am to welcome to this show Robert Janicki. He's written a book called Looking Back, a Marine's personal experiences as an infantry squad leader with the 3rd Marines in Vietnam. Bob, thanks so much for coming on.
Well, thank you, Kate, for having me.
You and I talked off the air, and you said that this took you 30 years to write, and you had so much encouragement from your family. And I can only imagine, because you were reliving those experiences, is that was what was so tough to take you back to those jungles?
Yes. We were at the phone company, and we were allowed to create a veterans group that could speak live. And in preparation for that, we had to make notes, and we had to, create storylines around our notes. So we picked some of the more powerful moments of our experiences in Vietnam, and there was 5 of us. Officers, enlisted men, machine gunners, people like myself. So I learned there how to, put some of my thoughts down. And then long after those speaking engagements, I still had my notes, and I started taking each one of my bullet items and expanding the story around that. And eventually it was a very long Word document, but then eventually it became a book over a long time.
Yeah. I mean, and you were just a kid when you served, and so many were even younger than you, as you told me, even, 18, 19 years old. And you served from September 1967 through October 1968. And immediately when I saw those dates, even before I read it, I realized, oh, that's the Tet Offensive in 68. What was that like?
It was horrific. We were up in the DMZ area, and when the night that Tet started, it was a battle all night. And then starting the next day, our job as my Marine unit wasn't to sit in a base camp. Our job was to go out after the bad guys. So we were sent out as a company, patrolling the northern I Corps area over towards Hue City, where a very large battle was taking place. And it turns out that our job at that point was to try to stop NVA soldiers coming from the north with supplies heading towards Hue. So we were a blocking force. But that battalion, that NVA regiment that was in Hue, got decimated and broken up into smaller groups, which they broke off, and we fought them for the rest of my time there. They were scattered all over northern Vietnam, and we chased them down, and we had fights.
And in the middle of these fights, I mean, it was, you were such a tight group of guys. How difficult was it when you, one by one, so many of the guys that you grew close to, you lost, and then you had to keep on fighting? I think sometimes that's lost on people, what that is like in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of this jungle.
It's one of the things that haunts us the most. We had no time to grieve. We couldn't allow our emotions to drag us down. We had to think about the next second, the next minute, the next hour. So that's one of the biggest issues for Vietnam veterans, is we have tremendous survivor guilt, that we didn't have a chance to mourn all these people that we loved and we trained with, and they were disappearing one day after another.
Yeah. So that's certainly one thing I think that a lot of people don't know about Vietnam vets. What do you think are some of the other things that people don't realize, and things that you've written about?
Well, some of the biggest things is I just mentioned survival guilt. We all have. Yeah, and let's just backtrack a little bit. There was no safe place in Vietnam. It wasn't like the wars of the past, where you had the enemy in front of you and friendly people behind you. Units like ours, we were out there every single night, and we were in a 360-degree perimeter protecting ourselves. So these emotions, they don't just go away. So we have survival guilt from the casualties that we took. From that, most of us suffer with severe depression, anxiety, enhanced startle factors. These are all key elements from what our experiences were, And I didn't realize any of this until I joined a veterans outreach group in 1979. It was all combat veterans. And I thought all these emotions were myself to deal with. And I immediately learned that all these other Marines, all these other veterans were sharing the exact same thoughts and feelings I had. And it was a huge relief in one way that I wasn't alone in this. I mean, it was still very hard to deal with, but these are all common effects that trauma has on a veteran, regardless of Vietnam or Iraq, Afghanistan. We all suffer these emotions that were delivered to us.
Yeah, that shows you the power of that group, and all the way to 1979 for you to find that group. And
yes, 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years. And when people read your story, what do you hope they take away from reading this story?
Well, the story is, it's just, it's through my eyes in my infantry unit. But from reading it, they will learn the feelings that we went through, the chemistry of the war, the jungles, the rice paddies. We didn't serve in the southern part of Vietnam, which is called the Delta. We were just up in the rice paddies in the jungles. But it's the feelings, the emotions that we carried with us every day, everything from joyful laughter in real difficult situations to the sorrow of loss. But to understand the pride that every single one of us has for serving our country, the pride that we have for serving in an extremely difficult war, and the horrible pain that we were delivered when we came home and were completely shunned and abused by our fellow Americans.
Yeah, talk about that. That's the other part of the story, of course, when you look back. Yeah. Was that surprising to you after going through all the things that you went through?
Well, you experience it when you're going through training and stuff. You can see them out in the street corners, away from the bases. But now to go to a war, go through some horrific times, and then come back and they were blatantly brutal. Eggs being punched out, things even worse than that. It taught, what it told us to do, it told us to shut up. And that's one of the worst things that could ever happen to a soldier, is not to allow them to talk about their experiences and share their pride and their honor for serving their country. So everybody that's listened to this that has a veteran in their family know that they, inside that shell of theirs, they are extremely proud. They're bursting with pride, but we've never been able to openly share those feelings.
And you and I also talked about this, and by the way, you can get Robert Janicki's book, of course, Looking Back on Amazon, but going to the Vietnam Wall and what that's like, and thank goodness we do have at least the Vietnam Wall, and you see people looking at it, and people, even younger people who don't understand, Bob, what the war was. I think there's something to, hey, this is a marker at least to let you know, as you said, the pride, look at the people, look at the loss. What's that like for you when you go there?
It's extremely solemn. You do a lot of soul searching. You're among your friends, and you can allow yourself to be that. The wall is, the names of the casualties are chronological and by date. So you can track down a name, and then you can just keep searching forward or backwards from that name and find other names of the men that you served with. It's extremely emotional. Sometimes I go there by myself. Sometimes I go there with my family. It's just a place where you can just show your love for these men that you served with, and it's extremely emotional. It's not an easy visit, and it opens up a lot of emotions without even any words shared, because it brings back a lot of memories. They're really, an awful lot of memories.
Yeah, tough memories. Well, thank goodness you started this group, and that has flourished, the AT&T Group, and that in 1979, as you said, you were able to get in that that one group that was so powerful to release what was happening. And the more that happens, I think the better for so many veterans listening, don't you think?
I agree. When we started the group, my goal was not the group, but I started a newsletter at the phone company. And based on my experiences from my counseling group, what I want to do is start bringing Vietnam veterans together. So I had them supply anybody who was listed, interested in my newsletters. They sent in their name, the city that they worked in, the building that they worked in, and the location in that building. And every time I published a newsletter, the listings of all the veterans in the company were listed by building. So they had an opportunity to search each other out, and it took off like a rocket ship. We held Veterans Day ceremonies, Memorial Day ceremonies. We got company approval to fly the POW flag on all of our flagpoles. So it gave us a lot of, it gave us the ability to show our pride for our country and our dedication to our country.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for your service and for this amazing book, Looking Back, Robert Janicki. We appreciate you coming on.
Okay, thank you very much, Kate.
Looking back, keeping track of the progress of the keeping of the ego intact. Before